So good evening. Welcome to our virtual kindergarten question and answer session. I'm Kayla Bell. I'm the administrator for early learning and elementary curriculum instruction and assessment, and we're very happy to have you here tonight. As you will see, I am joined by a variety of people. I'm going to go ahead and introduce them right now. I have Kathleen Skidmore. She is our executive administrator for elementary. I also have principals with us today. We have Melissa Murray with William Walker, Jennifer DeMartino with Raleigh Hills K-8, and we have Monique Singleton with Vos Elementary School as well. In addition, we have Danielle Hudson. She is our Director of Student Services. And I also have two teachers on special assignment with me. I have Jen Burkhart and Sarah Duncan, and they are part of our early learning team. We want to thank you for being here today. So we're going to go ahead and start. I'm going to have Kathleen Skidmore go ahead and tell us a little bit about what parents can expect when they go to kindergarten. And it looks like I have, oh, there's Kathleen. I'm going to go ahead and add Monique Singleton. She's the principal of Vos Elementary. Would you, Monique, go ahead and tell us a little bit about parents might expect when they go to kindergarten this year?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We know this is an exciting time as you start anticipating kindergarten for your child. Each of our schools in Beaverton have very similar designs for our kindergarten programs. A big focus of our kindergarten is to really just offer developmentally appropriate opportunities for kids to ease into school and a full day in school. Most students up to that point haven't been in a full day. We understand that because most of them either have been at home with family or in some sort of preschool environment. So we really try to make sure to see where they're at and get to know them, build relationships, help connect them with their peers of the similar age, as well as help them be part of a larger school community. We do that through offering opportunities to learn routines. They learn how to enter into cafeteria and have lunch together. They learn about building community within their classrooms, sitting in community circles, doing activities together that their teachers designed. We do a lot of purposeful play within our schools, and we're expanding that as we go into next year, where kids really can develop opportunities to explore and learn about the environment and the world around them through targeted activities that teachers design through a variety of using a variety of different materials. It's really fun and engaging for kids. And we just really work on focusing to develop their confidence in themselves as independent thinkers, while also being part of a larger community and developing social skills that'll help them throughout their schooling. So that's kind of our foundation that we try to create in kindergarten in all of our schools.
Thank you, Monique. And Kathleen, what is the age requirement to get into kindergarten? Can you tell parents about what they need to know?
Sure. In order to qualify for kindergarten, a child has to be 5 years old on or before September 1st of the school year that they're starting. So for this year, it would be September 1st, 2020.
Thank you. And we're starting to get some questions coming in. One of the questions is curious just about what kindergarten might look like this fall. And I believe that's really in response to how things look differently due to COVID-19. And so I just want to go ahead and address that as a district, we are working on our return to school plans and what it'll look like for all of our students pre-K to 12 to enter the classrooms in the fall. And by entering the classrooms, we're looking at a variety of ways students might do that. We will have some virtual opportunities. We have remote learning opportunities that might continue. And we also may have students on campus. Right now, as a district, we're working on the variety of plans for how that will look. And we hope to be able to share those with the public in the coming weeks. We are working and waiting for guidance from ODE, from the Oregon Department of Education, on what that may look like as well. But we want you to know that the safety and security of students is always our first priority. And as any kind of planning that we are doing, we are keeping that in mind, along with the social emotional health of a child. So I'm going to move to our next question. We have some question about updates regarding orientation. Melissa, would you be able to answer any questions about orientation, please?
Yes, I think right now, as you mentioned, we're in a state of flux with looking at where we are with coming back in the fall. And so I think this opportunity that we have right now is a format in which we are looking at to be able to provide our families with an opportunity to learn about our schools, learn about our different programs. And so just as what we're looking at for students to return in the fall, we are also looking at different ways in which we can provide parents with an opportunity to be oriented to kindergarten as well as students. So that is also still in the planning stages.
Jennifer, could you discuss the class size, please? What do you anticipate class size may look like across the district?
Well, class size looks different building to building, but in general, it can vary anywhere between 20 and 30 children in a kindergarten class. In my building this year, we had 23 to 25 kids in each of our 3 kindergarten classes. And I noticed that people were asking about aides. We don't currently have full-time aides in every classroom. However, we do have aides who do split their time among the classrooms to try to help the teachers manage that. But our teachers are really, really good at building up social skills with the kids and working with them to help them. So no matter what their class size is, they're differentiating for all the learners in their classrooms.
Thank you. And Monique, we have a question about Spanish immersion programs. Do you think you might be able to answer that for us?
Sure. In our district, we have 3 schools, both where I'm a principal, as well as Barnes Elementary and Aloha Huber, all have dual immersion, K5, and Aloha Huber has K8 programs. And what typically happens is that families apply to those programs. So at each of the school's websites, you can find an application for dual immersion, and you would just submit that. During this time when our offices aren't open, you can submit that through email. And also various schools have office hours that are posted on our websites that will let you know at least once a week, or where someone will be collecting forms outside the building. So you can always turn things in that way as well. And if you have specific questions, you can contact Bose or Barnes or Aloha Huber, because secretaries typically are checking phones every couple days, even in this remote learning environment. So,
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the questions that came in had to do with how many subjects are taught in a single day in the in kindergarten. I was wondering, Sarah Duncan, do you think you could talk about the subject matter that's covered in kindergarten?
Sure. In kindergarten, so much is covered across the learning day. And really this year, as we go into the upcoming school year, focusing on play as a method to learn. And in that experience, a strong focus on social emotional learning, so kids can learn to be together. And that is also a huge focus across the content areas in the area of reading and writing and math. And beginning literacy skills, of course, are emphasized in kindergarten, along with numeracy skills. And there is a focus on science and social studies throughout the year as well. So, so much is happening for our 5-year-olds in a very playful, engaging time with kids and teachers.
Thank you. We also had a question about visitation of classrooms and getting to meet their teachers before the school year starts. Again, those are all details that we are not ready. We don't have those details yet, but I would definitely recommend keeping an eye on your school's webpage and checking in with your school. And as a district, we'll be releasing information about if we're able to have some in-person kindergarten orientations. I can tell you that everyone wants to do that. We're very excited to have new kinders and their families on campus, and we want them to see that the kindergarten classrooms and have that experience. So we definitely, that is something we're working towards, but we have to wait for guidance from ODE. We also have a question I'm going to have to ask Danielle to talk about early intervention. If your child is already in the early intervention, do they automatically transfer over their records, or what do we do about registration?
So they don't automatically transfer over. So if you have a child who's being served in early intervention, you will be, your school, the case manager, the special education teacher, speech language pathologist, they should be reaching out to you to talk about developing an IEP and establishing a special education eligibility for school. However, one of the things you can do as a parent is making sure to go into your neighborhood school or virtually go into your neighborhood school to register for kindergarten, because we need to know that the student is planning to enroll in the district. And once we get that enrollment process taken care of, that special ed team will meet with you to talk about what kind of evaluations or anything might be needed to make sure that your student receives services in the fall.
Thank you. And we have a question around registering your child in an immersion class. And I'm wondering if which one of the principals might want to take that question.
Are they referring, you think, to Spanish immersion?
I'm going to guess it's Spanish immersion.
Yeah, I can address that. So again, families could go to one of the websites where we have the Spanish immersion programs, Vos Elementary, Barnes Elementary, and Aloha Huber. Typically, those programs are designed to serve the communities that surround those schools, so within those attendance areas or for those schools. But there are sometimes opportunities where we might have a waiting list and a family could apply and be drawn through a lottery. So I would encourage them to register at the school, their neighborhood school where they live. And if they are interested in applying for dual immersion, pick which school is closest to them and then apply, and then wait and see through the lottery and through the placement of students within our own schools. Then we see if we have room to open up space to different community members beyond our school attendance area. It just depends on the year, and it depends on how many families apply within our attendance area. But again, our priority is our own attendance areas first.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We had a question that came in a little bit earlier that wanted to know about how many days a week do kindergarten students attend. They typically do attend 5 days a week along with their peers. And I'm not sure if this is a question regarding if school looks differently next year, but typically they attend 5 days a week. And then we had another question, and I'm going to Jen Burkhart to answer, is how would remote or virtual online learning look for kindergarten kids?
I know exactly why she sent that to me. I currently have a 6-year-old kindergartner at home that I am experiencing virtual learning with. So it's a great question because I'm not sure for next year how that will exactly look through the Beaverton School District. But some of the things that we have been doing that have worked really well have been a lot of community meetings, one-on-ones with teachers. I know there have been a lot of play dates that have happened virtually. And that has been something that's been very successful and helping children feel connected, not only to their teachers, but to their community as well. And of course, there's always what happens after a child has an interaction with the computer as well. And right now, we've been really working on encouraging children and families to explore together through inquiry. Some of the units of study they have looked at this year have been looking at shapes, studying lines, studying shadows and light. And that's very much an experiential situation where they're going out into their communities, going on walks, looking for these shapes and lights and colors and textures in their community, in their homes, and then asking questions and developing a sense of wonder through that, and through the community that they have at home. So there will be some interaction online, as you know, and you can imagine with a kindergarten child, that can only go so far. So it's really about kind of that hybrid of what can we encourage children to do in community with who's at home, but also what connection can we make online?
Thank you. Kathleen, can you share with us the cutoff dates for registering for kindergartners, or when is it too late?
Well, the good thing is that it's never too late to enroll your child for kindergarten. However, when school starts, it is best if you register before the first day of school. One of the things is going on right now where all schools have registration online, as well as availability to pick up registration packets at their schools. And you can go onto their school website to find out what day and time you can go pick up a packet. We encourage you to do it right now so that so we have an understanding of who's coming and we can prepare for the number of kids coming at each school.
Thank you. We have a question about aftercare programs for schools. I'm not sure if Melissa or Monique or Jennifer, if you have a program in your school that you could speak to how does a parent enroll in after school care?
We currently at William Walker do not have an after school care. So we have after school cares within the surrounding area that provide transportation to school and in the morning and after school. That is currently the situation we have at William Walker. But other schools do have after school care at their campuses. So I will let my colleagues speak as to if their schools do.
Yeah, I can speak to VOS and both at VOS and I was at Shoals Heights a couple years ago as principal, and we also had a program. It's really an independent program from the school district. They actually rent the space from the district and they do all the registration independently from the school. So it's really about finding out maybe if a school contacting the school office.
Thank you. Yeah, generally, if you contact your school, they'll be able to connect you with aftercare
on their website
programs.
and then get registered. For example, at VOS, we have Club K.
And Raleigh Hills is adding Club K.
What's that?
Raleigh Hills is adding Club K this as well. This will be our first time having Club K. And so we are having an information meeting on May 28th in the evening if anyone from Raleigh Hills is listening and wants to find out more about Club K at Raleigh Hills.
We also had a question about taking naps and rest time. Anyone like to field that one? Melissa.
Typically, in kindergarten, we do not take naps anymore, unfortunately. I know a lot of the students come to us wanting to take naps because that is the world they lived in just a couple months ago. But we do have a lot of times where we just take that time to meditate, to kind of come back from playing out from our transitions from either recess or from different academic experiences that we have. And some of those are just calming activities where we're able to just breathe, as well as some of them are a little bit more active. But we do have time where it's more of a downtime than a full-on nap.
Thank you, Melissa. Danielle, can you talk a little bit about about speech therapy? A family is asking about, is there evaluations for speech services at the beginning of the school year? The child currently sees a therapist.
Great. I think I saw a couple other things in there about speech. So one of the questions had been about how much speech services does a kindergartner typically get, and usually that is dependent on the IEP team. So looking at the student's IEP goals and determining how many minutes per week, per month the student will need in order to make progress towards their IEP. So if you have a child coming in with an IFSP, part of that conversation will be with your IFSP team and your new IEP team to talk about what that might look like. And if you have a child who's currently receiving speech therapy, you would end up having two scenarios. One, if you have a child who's already receiving speech therapy through Northwest Regional ESD, they have an IFSP, they would be coming into the system with those supports already ready to go in terms of an eligibility and an IEP. If your child is receiving private services, when they start in the fall, then we would take a look at them, get to know them, and then consider whether or not we need to pursue a special education evaluation, which would then look at like evaluation at the start of the school year. So a lot of that's dependent on whether or not the child is receiving private therapy or is already enrolled in early intervention services.
And Danielle, can I also have you speak a little bit about, we have a question about the kinds of SPED centers, or I think they're looking for programs at each school, and how do they better prepare for upcoming IEP and placement meetings?
Yep. So the Beaverton School District has a continuum of placement options every single elementary school in the district, middle school and high school, has a resource room setting. They also have speech language therapy support, motor support, occupational therapy, physical therapy support, all of that within the school site. We do have some students who have more complex needs that require more of a structured environment. And so we have hub type programs, specialized programs throughout the district. So depending on the need of the student and the IEP team's conversations and review of data, that team may look at a variety of different placement options. But our goal is to serve students primarily in their neighborhood school within the resource room setting. That's really kind of what we strive for. And most students, when they come into kindergarten, will primarily start in their neighborhood school in resource room, unless they were in a more intensive program through early childhood special education.
Thank you. And Kathleen, I have a couple of questions for you. Could you talk a little bit about what TAG might look like, or TAG services for students?
Sure. TAG stands for Talented and Gifted. And one of the things that happens when all children, kindergarten through 12th grader in school, our teachers are looking for markers that might indicate that the child is gifted. And so one of the things that will happen in the first 4 months of school is, as your child is doing their everyday work and interaction with other students, interaction with their teachers are evaluating them at all times. And so one of the things that they'll do is, it's called a Kingor assessment, where they will look at markers to determine if a child should be tested or not. So a teacher can determine if a child is tested, but also a parent can put in a request for a child to be tested. And then if the child and the teacher and the parent both feel the same way, then children are tested. It doesn't happen very often in kindergarten, because kindergarten is all about foundational skills. And a lot of our kids come in with strong foundational skills. So people think they're gifted, but what turns out is that they're just bright right now, and that giftedness needs to evolve over time. All of our kids are gifted in something, though.
Thank you, Kathleen. Could you also talk a little bit about, what does a parent do if they have twins? What do they have input as to whether they're in the same class or not, or what's?
That's a great question. As a former principal and as a former kindergarten teacher, we had lots of twin situations. And so we don't encourage twins to be in the same classroom, because we want them to kind of create their own life for themselves, their own friendship circle, their own identities within the school system. However, there are some situations where it is better for twins to be together. So the best thing that a parent can do is call the school right before school starts and have a conversation with the principal.
Thank you. And I'm going to ask Sarah or Jen to take this next one. So we often hear about kindergarten readiness, and parents want to know, what can we do to get our kids ready for kindergarten? Sarah, do you want to start with that?
Sure. I think it's important for us to know, or families to know, that we are ready for kindergartners, and that's a bit of a shift on the way we have looked at it in the past. Is a child kindergarten ready? And we're really switching that narrative to, are we ready for all children? And so I can assure you that the teachers in the Beaverton School District and the principals, leaders in each school, are so ready for your child, and we'll do everything we can to support their growth in all areas. So we do believe that your child is always ready for kindergarten.
Jen, is there anything you want to add to that?
I was just going to add, I echo everything Sarah Duncan just shared. But as parents, I'm sure you're also wondering, so what does that mean? What should I do to get my child ready, even though we just said they're already ready? We're ready for them. We're getting ready for them. So I would just like to add, I guess, since I'm in it as well, it's reading to your child as much as you can, writing with your child as much as you can, talking to your child, asking them questions, and then pausing and listening deeply to what they have to say as they're trying to figure out their worlds. When you're reading with them, if you start noticing they want to play around with letters and numbers and play dice games, that's wonderful too. But those are the things we really want you doing with your child at home, just bonding and enjoying that time learning about them as learners and as human beings. So I would just add that.
Thank you. So Monique, we have another question. We've had a few questions about Spanish immersion. Can you talk a little bit more about what is a Spanish immersion class?
Sure. In our district, we, as I said, at Vos Elementary in Barnes, we have two programs. Our programs are what are called 90-10 Spanish immersion. And at Aloha Huber, there's a 50-50 Spanish immersion program. And the 90-10 model is basically that in kindergarten students, all students, native Spanish speaking and native English speaking, start their elementary career learning to read and write in Spanish first. So they spend 90% of their time learning in Spanish and 10% learning in English. Research has proven that that actually is conducive for native English speakers who are learning Spanish as a second language, but is especially valuable for our native Spanish speakers to have a solid foundation in Spanish so that then they can later add their English literacy and language development to that. So it's designed, the whole program model is designed to help support our English language learners. It's research-based, proven to be the best model to help them achieve the highest levels of English acquisition. So we have those models in place. Gradually what happens in first grade is they have 80% in Spanish, 20% in English. Then in second grade, it's 70% in Spanish, 20% in English. And in third, fourth, and fifth, they spend 50% of their time in each language. So it's important that parents understand those pieces, and families are who are interested are encouraged to apply. Again, as I said, we target and focus on our communities that we serve at each of our schools, and then families that are interested from other schools will be able to hear more information. Once we decide as a district around our orientations, Vos and Barnes, I know we both have orientations for dual language. So we provide a separate informational evening so families who are interested can hear more about that. And depending on how the plan evolves for fall, we may end up having to do that remotely, similar to this, and or being able to show some videos. We have some that we're putting together from past years to be able to show a snapshot of what that looks like. But it's a pretty amazing program. All of my own 3 children have gone through Spanish immersion programs, and I have a junior and an 8th grader and a 4th grader. And it's pretty amazing to see the impact for them in developing their confidence and giving them some lifelong skills that'll help them in all their future endeavors. And I just think it's a fantastic program. I've worked within those programs for 18 of my 20 years in education, and I'm a big fan. So I'm happy to answer other questions as we have future information nights at Vos.
Thank you. We did have a question from a parent who maybe is not interested in being in an immersion program. What are the options for that parent?
Yeah, so at Barnes Elementary, they are proceeding with a school-wide implementation. So that means all kindergarten classes this current year in 2019-20, and then next year, as well as following years, all kindergarten classrooms will be Spanish immersion. So if a family is in the Barnes attendance area and learns about it and chooses that it is not necessarily something for their family, they can apply through the school office and be placed at a nearby school. And that gets worked out through the office, and I believe transportation is provided. Melissa, I know you've been a site for some of the families who have opted out.
Yes, currently for this year, the schools they would opt into would be William Walker or Beaver Acres, and that would basically be contingent on where they live and determined by Barnes, by the district office and Barnes.
Thank you. So Sarah or Jen, could you talk a little bit about the math and the ELA curriculum that are used?
Sure. I'll get us started, and maybe Sarah will jump in. Our math curriculum is called Context for Learning. It's taught in a workshop format. It's by Kathy Fosno. It's very much math problems in the context of real life situations, Teachers set off on share a real life situation or problem. Kids go off and try to figure it out with manipulatives and with their, in collaboration with their peers, and then come back to share different strategies for that. Our literacy curriculum is a balanced literacy approach. We use many different tools. Our backbone would be the Lucy Calkins Units of Study, Teachers College Units of Study in Reading and Writing. We also have a phonics curriculum, and we're adding phonemic awareness to round that out. We have a handwriting curriculum as well. We really try to take a balanced approach to literacy to include phonics and whole language and all of the components that truly allow for a comprehensive literacy program. Do you want to add anything, Sarah?
Sure, I'll just add that all of those resources are built on the foundation of very strong professional development that's offered for staff and teachers across our district. So with all of the tools that Jen mentioned, hours of professional development have been provided for teachers to support them in their best practices, which is best practices for each of those content areas, to really understand why those tools are helpful to meet the needs of students and respond to the needs of students within their class.
Thank you. And Sarah and Jen, could you follow up and just talk to us a little bit about what a parent or a child might experience during a school day? What does that school day look like for a kindergartner?
Well, on a best day, in normal circumstances, a child would arrive to school in the manner that they do, would be greeted with a warm hug or a handshake by their loving teacher, off to a circle gathering where they may talk about some social emotional skills, some things that came up in the day before during play or during collaboration. Then students will set off on an adventure in learning through play, where they will be invited into various areas around the room to paint, to draw, to imaginatively tell a story with dinosaurs and pine cones, and all the while learning through inquiry. That learning through play would then lead into the other work that the children would do and help engage them in the work that they would be doing what we just talked about during reading and writing workshop, where they read and write in collaboration with their peers and with their teacher. There's specials during the day, and that would come at different times depending on the individual school schedules. There's a lunch portion of the day. There are recesses throughout the day. I cannot tell you exactly where they are because every school has their own schedule for that. We also include science and social study through an inquiry process where there's a big idea such as what is our place in the world and what's our responsibility to the earth and vice versa. And they would study that through the lens of living things and their own community as well. Sarah, jump in if I've missed a huge chunk of the kindergarten day. There's snack. And anyone else, feel free to jump in if I've missed something. And hopefully a community circle at the end with a song and a goodbye with their own name, and off they go into the magical world of kindergarten.
I also want to acknowledge, I know there are many comments that are asking about how do we social distance kindergarten students? How do we ensure that how many can actually arrive at kindergarten? Right now, ODE has said 25 and asking, what are we planning to do? I mean, I want to be really transparent that we are working on all of those plans. We don't have those plans available for you tonight. But there is a team of district leaders, teachers are part of that work, administrators, and we are going through the guidance that's coming from Oregon Department of Education, from Kate Brown, and we are really looking at what are our limitations for next year and how do we keep our kids safe. So I think it's really important for families to know that, again, safety and security and the health and well-being of your child is number one. And we want to make sure all of those pieces are in place. So some of the things that we're typically talking about that typically take place in kindergarten, we may have to make some adjustments to that. We still know that play is essential. We still know that the social emotional health is essential. We know that kids working and playing together is essential, and we just have to figure those pieces out. So that's something that our district is working on. Individual principals and schools will we'll provide information as we have it. And again, you can always look to our BSD website as well. I just know there's many comments about that, and I want to assure you that those comments, we're reading each and every one of them, and it is something that is part of our framework and how we're trying to address students returning to school. But I'm going to ask Danielle, we have a question about ESL students and receiving services. I'm wondering if you can address that.
Okay, great. So ESL is English as a second language, and we actually refer to it as ELD, English Language Development. And we do offer ELD programs for students who are kindergarten. It just depends on the school. So depending on the school and their instructional model, there is a push-in support where, or kind of co-teaching model where the ELD teacher and the general education teacher work together. Additionally, there is some schools that still provide a pull-out model where students who are in kindergarten who are learning English as a second language will go to the ELD classroom and work with the ESL teacher at a certain part of the day. And it varies on time. Usually it's about a half an hour. It just depends on the school and the school structure there.
Thank you. Jennifer, I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about how do teachers make sure that they balance those learning needs in the classroom and ensure that kids who come in with more foundational skills are not being as written bored.
Sure. So a lot of it stems from what Jen and Sarah described about our workshop model. And so kids come in and they have a 10-minute mini lesson with their teacher that gives them the big concept for the day, that they get an invitation to try that out. And then they go back and they do some independent work. And during that work time, teachers are meeting individually with kids or in small groups. And that's when they're tailoring their that portion of the day to the individual or small group needs of the kids. So they might pull a group of children who are all working on one particular thing and give them just a little nudge that will move them up to the next level. And so they're constantly assessing the kids in their classroom so that they know what it is that they need. And they learn a lot about their readers and writers and mathematicians through those conferences. So it really helps them to find out what the kids know already and what they need to learn next. And the great news is that we do workshop for reading, writing, and math. And so the teachers are getting to know their students very well. And that through that knowledge of what they're knowing, they know how to give them that next thing that will just help each one of them move up to the level and meet their potential, even given where they come in to us. So it's really just through the teachers knowing their students.
Thank you. And Kathleen, can you talk a little bit about parent volunteers and whether or not parent volunteers will be in the mix next year? So Kathleen is muted, but I will tell you that parent volunteers go through a process where they background check and register in their schools. And it's after that background check has been completed and they've been cleared that they're allowed to participate in the classrooms. We can tell you that when we started this spring, when we started getting some different kinds of guidance around COVID-19, parent volunteers were not allowed in the classrooms for I believe the final week before we ended up closing school. Guidance around whether or not parent volunteers will be back in the classrooms will really depend on guidance we get from ODE and from our governor. And again, those are those details that we don't have worked out yet as a system, but we will definitely be communicating those when we have those pieces figured out. Can someone talk a little bit about specials like PE and music, and how often are students having these experiences?
I can talk about that. Yep. Students have access to PE twice a week, music twice a week, and then there's typically another one or two other specials depending on the school. And those options could include library, technology, and perhaps art or science STEAM option. So it just depends on the programs and supports that that school has in place. But students have a specials, typically 45 minutes in each building each day. And those are taught by trained teachers and also support staff who are trained in those different ways. So kids get exposure to a lot of really great things outside of their own teacher skills that they're delivering to them on a regular basis.
Thank you. And I know it's come up several times tonight. What about lunch? What does lunch look like? How long do kids get to eat lunch? And if anyone can talk a little bit about the menu or any limitations in the cafeteria, that would be wonderful.
Kayla, I'm going to speak up about allergens because that was one of the things that's been in the chat, but then I'll have someone else talk about the lunch schedule and what that looks like. So we have district nurses who, it's really important when you're registering your child to make sure to fill out the registration form and indicate if your child has any food or other allergies, because we use that information to help us then pull information to determine if we have any students who require a health management plan. So our nurses then reach out to families for any students who have allergies in general, but also in particular food allergies. And you as a parent can also contact the school and ask to speak with your school nurse and let them know that your child has a food allergy. One of the nice things with our nutrition services program is you can go on to our nutrition services website, and you actually could go on right now and take a look at nutrition services and go to the school menu, the lunch menu, and you can ask to look at kind of the nutrients and those pieces. It takes you to another place, and it's called School Cafe, and you can actually log in as a guest. And you can sort the menu for different allergens from wheat to milk and soy and nuts. And so it can help you identify what you will want your child to eat or to stay away from. And so it helps you be active in terms of educating your child on what they should or should not eat, but then also helps the school know what is offered at lunch and might be a possible allergen for a student.
Thank you so much. And I'm wondering if one of the principals could talk a little bit about how do you place kindergarten students? How do you decide which classes they're in?
I think, Kayla, they wanted to also know a little bit about what lunch looks like.
Oh, that's true. Yes, thank you.
And so I was just going to share that a typical lunch period, you have 20 minutes to eat and 20 minutes to play. The structure of depends on the school and your ability to just where your playground is and being able to move kids in and out. Some schools may play first and then eat. Other schools may eat and then play. It just varies. But it really is a great time for kindergartners. They sit and talk and eat, and there's a lot of help. So don't worry that they're not going to have things, the help to open things up. We really flood in those early months, a lot of help in kindergarten to make sure we get everybody situated. We're able to help them be able to open up their juice boxes or whatever they bring from home. And then we build those skills in helping them to be able to open those items on their own. And if they don't buy a lunch at school, and if they buy a lunch at school, the lunch at school is great. They have the vegetable salad bar option is wonderful. And they have a lot of variety. They get to self-select what they want to eat. And they have a choice of chocolate milk and then regular milk, as well as they can, we have water, or if they bring something else that is healthy to drink. But it really is a great time for our kinders to socialize, as well as when they go out to play. So,
Kayla, could I add one more thing?
Please.
I found to be helpful as a principal and as a parent of 3 kids who have transitioned from different experiences into school full-time. I would recommend, especially with so much time together at home, that in the coming weeks and months that you have some opportunities just to practice eating out of a lunchbox and pack a lunch, have a picnic in the backyard, pack a lunch, have picnic at the kitchen table, and talk through choices that you'd like your child to be thinking about. humans are humans and cookies are yummy. And when snacks and treats are put in lunches, which are great to have, a lot of kids will go straight for that treat versus the healthy, robust meal you pack for them. And so I just think it's good to remind parents and give parents that kind of clue that we do, although what Melissa said is true, we have lots of help. There typically are anywhere from 60 to 100 kindergartners in a cafeteria. And it's great if kids have some of those self-management and also just some confidence in knowing what they can pick for healthy choices, and have some of those values and those experiences that you've shared with them, helping them make those choices as they get into that more independent stage, being at school on their own. So you can definitely tell when kids have had those opportunities and they're really trying to make those healthy choices first, and they're saving that cookie for their treat at the end versus like going straight in for the chips and the cookies. So I think, and then parents later will ask us like, how come my kid still has all their sandwich left and they ate all the cookies and chips? And we're like, that's what they wanted. So just I'd encourage you to try to have those practice times with them. And this kind of gives us that extra time as parents to practice that.
Thank you so much. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to see if Jennifer wants to tackle how do you place students in your building?
Yeah, so last year we had this great time where we got a chance with the kindergarten teachers to sit down with each student and do a little assessment. And so they got to meet with each child and talk to them a little bit. And then we had half the kindergartners come on one day, and then half the kindergartners come on the second day. So they spent some time with the teachers. And then after that, we sat down and we talked about balancing the classrooms. So we'll look at things like how many students have an IEP, and we'll place them so that there's a balance and a good mix. And if the students have ELD services, we try to spread those across each class. And then we sometimes even look at birthdays to see that we have a good mix of older children and younger children in the year together. And we really do our best to try to make sure that the classes are balanced in that way. As the kindergarten teachers get to know the kids a little bit, last year we had that luxury. Now I'm seeing lots of questions in the chat about what that might look like this year. Are we going to have those assessment days? And those are questions that Kayla, I'm sure, would say we just don't know at this time. But even still, there have been years where we haven't had those days to get to know the kids, where we still go through that process of trying to create the balanced classrooms so that each teacher has a similar number of children and similar balance of boys and girls, so that they can just do their best for that differentiation that we talked about.
Thank you. And I know what's on a lot of parents' minds every single year is about the safety of the building. How do we keep our kids safe when they're inside the building? What are the safety measures? Can anyone just come into the building? What does that look like? Can one of our principals just talk about their building?
Yeah, I don't mind. Since I'm still unmuted, I'll go ahead and talk about. So we ask all of our visitors to come in through the front office, and they will sign in and wear a name tag. If they're a volunteer that is in our system, then they will have a name tag that's already made for them because we have the background check. And so they'll just find their name tag, put it on, and then they get to go into the classroom or through to do the other jobs that they might be working on for us in the classroom. But all people who come into the building do come through that front office so that we can make sure we know who's in our building at all times. So if they're there just to eat lunch with their student, that's great. And they can just sign in, get a visitor's tag, and then we send them on their way, get them where they need to be. But we do ask all visitors to come in through that front office so we can make sure who's there at all times.
Thank you so much. And there's a secondary question around really about safety. Can someone, maybe Melissa, talk a little bit about how do the kids prepare for things like the emergency drills, fire drills, lockout, lockdown drills? Can you talk about that?
Absolutely. Just like everything we do at school, we practice it, we talk about it, we really make it a normal thing. And the kids usually, when it's time to have a drill, they're prepared, they're excited because it's almost like a show where they get to perform. And, you know, we also do provide students that are needing, they might have sensory issues, or just with our loud noises of our alarms. We do allow them to take headsets out that they know to grab themselves. And then after our drills, students are always provided with feedback as to, like, great job, you came out of the building really quietly and quickly, and they're really excited about it. And I think when they go back to the classroom, they do talk about how they did a great job with it. And I know for my own daughter, she's now a first grader, when she would come back from her kindergarten drills, she was really excited. She would say, Mom, we had a lockdown drill today, and this is what you're supposed to do. And so it is something that we try to create as a positive, so that way kids are not afraid when it's time to do it, because really when it is an emergency, you act the way you practice.
Thank you so much. And Kathleen, we have a question, I believe, about administrative transfers. So I'm hoping you can address it. So if a family moved over the summer and they have a kindergartner, but also have a sibling that attends a different school, do they need to do a school transfer now, or when would they do that within the time? Maybe just talk about that process a little bit.
Yes, you can fill out an administrative transfer form right now. They're collecting them in the schools, and all of them that they will receive before June 15th, they'll be acting on June 30th. And then the rest of them that they receive in July and August, they will act on them in August. And an administrative transfer is for a family that lives in Barnes attendance area and would like to go to a different school because their parents might work there closer to another school. And so they would like their child to go there because it will be convenient for them. Not all administrative transfers are approved. There's a hardship criteria that you'll find on the form, and the form is found on the website. And there are 4 criteria. It's the same hardship criteria that ODE uses. And you hand it into your homeschool principal. So that would be, if you lived in Barnes, you'd hand it into Barnes Elementary, and then the Barnes principal and then the school that you're trying to attend would have a conversation. And the first thing they're going to look at is capacity. Do they have room for the kids? The second thing that they're going to look at is there a hardship here?
Thank you so much. We have a few questions about what that first day looks like. Do I have to drop my kids off? Can I walk them to class? What if I don't have a background check? What can I expect as a parent for the first time coming into school with my kindergartner? I'm wondering if one of the principals could address that for us.
Yeah, I can talk about that. Just as Jen and Melissa have shared that there are some things that are consistent around safety in all of our schools, there are also things that vary a little bit. And I would say that what you can be guaranteed to have is that there will be plenty of staff on hand on the first day of school, if indeed we all get to come and be in face-to-face contact with each other during the first day or first weeks of kindergarten, that we'll have plenty of staff on hand. I can speak to the schools where I've been principal at, and we always have lots of people on hand. We have class lists ready to go. We have arrows, signs, multilingual staff who can direct families that speak different language. And then we just make sure that everybody gets to the right spots. I guarantee you that when a child comes into a building, there are lots of adults within 5 to 10 feet of them, and are constantly there available to warmly help them and support them and get them to the right spots. We don't lose kids in schools, and we do a great job, I think, as a whole district of making sure kids are safe and taken care of. We're all very aware kindergartners are in a special situation. They haven't been in our buildings. They haven't been in a full day school environment. And so we take special care and put a lot of effort into making sure that they get all the support that they need. And often I've seen some parents, we sometimes will have what we call a woo-hoo or like boo-hoo gathering for our parents, where some parents are like, woohoo, they're going to kindergarten, and others are like, boo, they're going to kindergarten. And we try to make sure to have that gathering for our parents so they can kind of decompress from that emotional place of giving their children to us and trusting us with them. And so we take that responsibility really seriously in our schools. and make sure to provide whatever guidance or support we need to for the kids, but also for parents. So there's lots of opportunities if your questions don't get answered tonight to be able to get those questions answered at your school sites. I know that's got to be hard when you're thinking about all the things that are pertinent to you and you want to know, and you may not get them all answered tonight, but do know that we'll do everything we can in our school sites. I would just add one thing about that. On all of our school websites, there's a button in the top right corner called Connect, I think it says. And if you click on that, then there's a Contact Us button. And if you click on that button, it sends a direct email to typically a school secretary or principal or checking that regularly. And I get daily emails that I'm responding to from families who are contacting us about all kinds of things. So if you're having trouble or not sure how to contact or who to contact, that's the best place to start. Okay.
Thank you so much. And Kathleen, I was wondering if parents just have general concerns about, like, they've registered, but they haven't received information back, or they're not sure if their registration has gone through. What do you recommend for them?
Well, for right now, I recommend that you sit still. And I know that's a hard thing to say, but registration has just opened up. And so we are gathering the names and the emails and the paperwork in order to get you on the class or get you on the school roster. And then once that happens, then the school will be reaching out to you to like give you newsletters that they're passing out to the rest of their community. There also will be sending information that's just pertinent to kindergarten. You'll hear more about kindergarten closer to the school year starting than you will right now. So the things like, will my child be able to ride the bus? What's the bus? Where do they get picked up? What are the meals? All of that information will be coming in August.
Thank you. So for a kindergarten placement, principals, if a child has an older sibling, is there a chance that their younger sibling is going to be placed in the same classroom as the first child, or how does that work?
I can take that one.
I'll take that question.
Oh, go ahead,
Oh.
Kathleen. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Monique.
So typically for class placement of kindergartners, as Jennifer shared, we have had some time to be able to create those balanced classes of kids to create communities where everyone can be supported and learning can be more conducive. When we're thinking about possible placement with a teacher that a sibling had, that's kind of a complicated piece because right now teachers are in a variety of placements this year. We're not exactly sure what placement they'll all have next year. And so if a parent has something that they'd like to communicate with a school or with an administrator about a positive experience or some concern they have, I think, again, that Contact Us is a good option of sending an email to that administrator and trying to seek out additional information about that situation that might be happening, because really placements come down to whatever teachers are assigned to that grade level and then whatever kids are coming into that grade level. And then we try to create communities that are productive and positive for everybody. So that's kind of a complex one to answer in a succinct way.
Thank you for that. Kathleen, did you want to add something to that?
No, I was just going to close it out after you're done. 3 minutes left.
3 minutes left. I know we still have parents that have, how do I know that I've actually been registered and that it's confirmed? How do I know that? Will I just have to wait till August?
No, most of our schools, we're getting, our secretaries are looking at those online registrations and they're starting to, they're processing those. Typically a secretary would reach out if they needed additional paperwork or verification around birth certificate or or immunizations. And then as we move into the more clear planning for what the fall will look like, I'm suspecting that in most schools we have a way to create mailing lists for those families that have been registered, and emails, and different schools do different things. But for instance, we at VOS would send out an email to all the families that have registered to welcome them and to send them a welcome letter, both by email and a hard copy mailing. And different schools do different things to reach out to you. But I suspect that by the middle of August, you for sure should hear from the school, if not before then.
And Kathleen, I'm guessing that schools are posting their hours that they're open at this time or during the summer, and parents will be able to check back on that.
I can. Yes, and this seems to be a big question. So we will let all schools know that parents want to know if they've registered or not. So we will get back to them. We'll share that with everyone.
That's great.
Yeah.
I think what we're hoping tonight is that we've been able to answer some of your questions. We know we haven't been able to answer all of them, but we do want to thank you for being here with us this evening. And we hope that we've relieved at least some of your anxieties and worries about sending your children to kindergarten next year. And please know that once again, the safety and security of students is the most important for us. And we're going to do everything we can, and we will continue to communicate with you through our BSD website and through the individual schools. So we want to thank you for being here tonight and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Great job.
We're excited to have your kindergartners.
Good job, guys.